الله يبارك فيك. طيب بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. أما بعد. So before we get into the book, يا إخوان, we need to learn some, or we need to introduce ourselves to the science of Sarf, and we need to learn some foundational points pertaining to the science of Sarf, so that when we get into the book, we understand most of what is being said. Yani, sometimes some books are authored for a particular type of people. So when another type of people comes and studies that book, they need some adjustments. They need some, muqaddimat, so that they can be upgraded to the level of the students for whom the book was authored. And likewise, we are going to do with this book of ours, that is Tahdheeb Binaa il-Af'aal. We will first be working on upgrading ourselves to be able to understand what is being said in the book, and also we will be trying to learn what is not mentioned in the book, and what, even though it is required. So some of the books, they focus on a particular branch of a science, and they might ignore some other topics that are equally important, but they are not being discussed in the book. So we need to, because we are learning Sarf, and we need to learn this whole science, and this is the first time we're doing it, so we need to make our course sort of comprehensive. So these are the 5 muqaddimat, ya ikhwan and ya akhawat, that we are going to first learn and explain in detail, and then inshallah we're going to enter into the book, so that our study of the science of Sarf becomes comprehensive. طيب. First of all, ya ikhwan, what is Sarf? What is Sarf? Who remembers from the durus of Nahu, when we discussed the different sciences of the Arabic language, and we discussed that there are 4 sciences of Arabic language that are the most important, and one of them is Sarf. So who can mention those 4 most important sciences, and then tell us what exactly does Sarf deal with? Naam. We mentioned 4 sciences that out of 12 sciences of Arabic language, we said 4 are the most important, and then we said that, and we explained each one of those 4 sciences, what do they deal with and what do they study. The sister says Nahu, Sarf, Ilm al-Ma'ani, Ilm al-Lugha. Mumtaz jiddan. Okay. Can you remind us, what does Nahu deal with? What does Nahu deal with?
The endings of the word and the structure of the sentence.
Mumtaz. And likewise, at the same time, the sister also finished writing her answer. That is the structure of the sentence and the endings of the word. So if, for example, we have, as always, Zaydun qa'imun, the evergreen example, Zaydun qa'imun. So in this sentence, ya ikhwan, what is the science of Nahu dealing with? The science of Nahu is dealing with this tanween that comes at the ends of the words, and it deals with the structure of the sentence. So if we have Zayd, which is the subject and the mubtada, so we need a khabar as well, that is qa'imun. So, and in this way, the sentence is now complete. But if we did not mention qa'imun, then the sentence wouldn't have been complete. In which science would we learn this? We would learn this in Nahu. We would learn this in Nahu, that what are the components of the sentence that are required to complete it. طيب. Moving on. As-Sarf. What does Sarf deal with in Zaydun qa'imun? Let's say. Does anyone remember what did Sarf deal with? ما في إشكال if you don't remember. I'm just asking because we have mentioned it once. That's why. Zaydun qa'imun. What would the job of Sarf be? to put to simply يعني نعم تفضل
changes in the structure of the word in and of
أحسن
itself.
ممتاز. And self is about converting love أول into its different forms صيغة. Okay, ممتاز. So you have okay, sister's definition and even Mustafa's definition was a little technical. We'll come to that, but just to simply put it, Sarf studies the structure of the word. Zaydun, why is he Zaydun? Why is he not Ziyadun? Or what if he is Ziyadun? Qa'imun. What if it is Maqumun? Or what if it is Qiyamun? Or what if it is Qama? Or what if it is Yaqumu, etc. So the different structure, it studies the structure of the word and the meanings that are denoted by that structure. The meanings that are denoted by that structure. So what does qa'imun mean? What if I make qa'imun into qiyamun? What meaning would be denoted by qiyamun? What if I make qa'imun, I convert it, transform it into a verb and say yaqumu? What if I say qama? What if I say qumtu, etc. طيب, so studies the structure of the word and how to different shapes or different patterns of different patterns in which the same root letters can be put into. Different patterns in which the same root letters can be put into, and the different meanings that are denoted by those different patterns. On the other hand, it also teaches us that if we intend to express a particular meaning, then we are supposed to choose the correct pattern for that meaning. And for example, here at times in Saudi, sometimes some people who learn Arabic by listening to the Arabs and they haven't studied it properly, they would think that زوج يزوج means to get married. However, زوج يزوج, or rather زوج يزوج means that to marry someone off, and to marry yourself is expressed by saying تزوج يتزوج. So زوج يزوج means to marry someone else off, to marry him or her to someone else, and تزوج means to get married yourself. Now, what brought us here was that if we want to use, if we want to express the meaning that is to get married, then we must use the correct pattern. We must choose the correct pattern for that meaning. So instead of saying زوج, we must choose تزوج يتزوج وهكذا. So I have heard a few people here مثلا they say زوجت what is زوجت? زوجت did you marry someone else off? No, I did not. I'm not the wali of anyone. So they must ask هل تزوجت مثلا تزوجت, did you yourself get married وهكذا. طيب, this is the first thing that we'll be inshallah learning, that what exactly is sarf. Second thing in the muqaddimat that we'll be shedding light on is al-Meezan as-Sarfi. What is al-Meezan as-Sarfi? We'll come to that later on. Then inshallah we'll be learning 5 classifications of fi'l. How many did we learn in Nahu? How many classifications of fi'l did we learn in Nahu? 3. What were they? Fi'l is divided into Madi, Mudari, and Amr. The second one was that fi'l is divided into or classified into Mabni al-Ma'loom and Mabni al-Majhul. And the third one was that the fi'l Mudari itself can be Sahih al-Akhir or Mu'tal al-Akhir or min al-Af'aal al-Khamsa. Right? So these were the classifications of fi'l that helped us in the science of Nahu, or that we were in need of. Now, in the science of Sarf, we need 5 classifications, 2 of which we have already, alhamdulillah, learned. So we have انقسام الفعل إلى ماضي مضارع and أمر. This we have learned in Nahu. Alhamdulillah, we all know what is ماضي, what is مضارع, and what is أمر. Likewise, انقسام الفعل إلى المبني للمعلوم والمبني للمجهول. That we have also learned in Nahu what is the fi'l that is mabni lil-ma'lum, the one that is in active case, and al-fi'l al-mabni lil-majhul, which means the passive case. And there will be three classifications that will be relatively new to us, that are لازم المتعدي, الصحيح, and المعتل. الصحيح and المعتل. Now this is not صحيح الآخر and معتل الآخر. This is الصحيح المعتل. So now we will not just be looking at the last letter of the fi'l, rather we would be looking at the letter in the middle as well as at the beginning of the fi'l. And then we have al-mujarrad and al-mazid fihi, and this is the most important classification when it comes to the science of Sarf. Just like we had in Asma, al-mu'rab al-mabni. Mu'rab al-mabni was the most important of ilm al-nahu, of the science of nahu. Likewise in as-Sarf, this is going to be the most important one, that is al-mujarrad and al-mazid fihi. Then, ya ikhwan and ya akhawat, we are going to learn, after we do these 5 classifications, we get done with them, we are going to quickly move on to, طبعا this here انقسام الفعل مجرد المزيد فيه, we're going to just learn it, learn a summary of it, or just introduce ourselves to it. Then in detail we're going to learn it within the book Tahdheeb Binaa il-Af'aal, because Tahdheeb Binaa il-Af'aal, the most important topic that it deals with is مجرد المزيد فيه. So it's going to tell us the different patterns of the fi'l mujarrad, and it's going to tell us also the different patterns of fi'l mazid fi and its meanings as well. So in detail, inshallah, in the book, here we'll only give you a very short introduction of what is mujarrad and mazid fi. Then after this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll be learning some qawaid, some maxims and principles that are related to sarf. For example, ya ikhwan, if we have nasara. Now nasara, if you want to attribute this verb to the first person, male and singular, you would say nasartu. صح? Right or wrong? طيب. Likewise, ikhwan, kataba. How would you say it for the first person singular? كتبت. سهل. صح? This is easy. But things get difficult, ya ikhwan, when you have something like kana. Now kana, with for the first person singular, how would you say it? Kantu wala kuntu?
كنت
Kuntu. طيب, that means now there is something disturbing going on here. Kana became kuntu. What's going on here? طيب, let's also talk about مثلا قال. طيب, how would you say I said? قالت, just like نصرت, or are you going to say something else? قلت. أحسنتم. قلت. طيب, now that means there is something going on here. This alif has undergone some sort of a change, and it has been deleted, or it has been it converted into some other letter. It has undergone some change. So these are things that we need to study. For this purpose, we'll be doing these 12, 13 qawaid. That's pretty much it. We're not going to go into too many details. Just 12, 13 qawaid. Likewise, ya ikhwan, mathalan, you have in the qawaid that we are going to learn, qala, qultu, and what else do we have? We have, for example, نعم. So for example, qala, these are also important for you to be able to identify the root letters. Now from qala, can you tell by looking at qala what are the root letters of qala, the 3 root letters of qala? Can you tell by looking at just at qala? Hi Shabab. Qaf, alif, lam. The sister says qaf, alif, lam. However, the reality is that the alif is not a root letter. It can never be a root letter. Alif can never be a root letter. It's always originally a vowel or a ya. Alif, whenever it is mentioned amongst the root letters, it is always originally a vowel or a ya that has been transformed into an alif, that has been converted and transformed into an alif. So the reality, so what exactly was the root letter in place of alif? Qaf waw lam. Mumtaz. Qaf waw lam. So this originally qala was qawala. Now qala was qawala. Then what happened that it ended up becoming qala. This is something that needs to be studied. This is something that needs to be learned. How did it end up becoming qala? That is because they say whenever the waw or the ya has a haraka and the letter before it has a fatha, then the waw or ya will be converted into an alif. So these are the sort of qawaid that we will be learning bi'idhnillahi ta'ala in this fourth muqaddimah. طيب. Likewise, ya ikhwan, for example, tell me what is the root of masha? Masha means to walk. Now here again we have alif maqsura, and we said that alif can never be the root letter itself. It is always originally a waw or a ya which has been converted into an alif. So who can tell me what is the root letter of masha, or the third root letter of masha? Mim, sheen, and ya. Ahsantum, mim, sheen, and ya. Because why? Because in the mudari' you say yamshi instead of saying yamshu. You say yamshi. That means the root letter is ya. We will be doing some exercises when we come to the qawaid. We will be doing some exercises in order to learn how to identify the root letters of a particular verb bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Just to tell you for now, we do that by looking at the different forms of that same word. So if we cannot know what are the root letters by looking at the fi'l madi, then we will look at the fi'l mudari'. If not, then we will look at the masdar. If not, then we will look at something else. Different derivatives of the same word, we look at them in order so that we could identify what are the three root letters of that particular word. Right. I'll just give you a challenging one, and inshallah then we'll move on. This is a very difficult one. Now, it looks simple, but it's difficult. Radiya. The one who answers it correctly must give me the dalil as well. Radiya. What is the root letter? What are the three root letters of radiya? What are the three root letters of radiya? This looks simple, but it's not simple. Radiya. Radiya means to be pleased with someone. Radiyallahu anhu. ها شباب. رضيا. نعم مضاعف. نعم. را and ضاد. Okay. را. نعم. را ضاد
and Hamza.
لا همزة. لا ليس همزة. طيب واو ممتاز. طيب Mubarak says ra, dad, and wow instead of saying ya. See, anyone who looks at this would say the third root letter is ya for sure. But the reality is that it is wow. طيب ya Mubarak, you need to tell us why is it wow, or what is your dalil, what is your proof that it is wow. You must provide with one proof.
Adam.
Sorry?
So the master. The master is Ridwan.
ممتاز. Okay, ممتاز. See يا شباب, in order to know what exactly are the three root letters, we need to look at the different derivatives of the same fi'l. When we look at the masdar, we find it's ridwan instead of ridyan مثلا. It's ridwan. But when it is ridwan, it is then that we know that here the third root letter is wow. So how did it become ya? It became ya because of the kasra before it. Because we cannot say radiwa, so we had to turn it into a ya. So this one is like the most deceiving of all. Radiya is the most deceiving of all. Its root letter is actually ra, dad, wow, and not ra, dad, ya. Like what other? What is the fruit, or what do we benefit by learning this ilm al-sarf? But what do we benefit by learning the root letter? Just before we mention the benefit of learning sarf, mention to me, or someone tell me, what is the benefit of knowing the root letter of a word? The root letters of a word. What is the benefit of knowing the three root letters of a word? Can someone mention to me any benefit?
it will,
نعم. نعم. Okay. So that we could convert it in different forms. Mumtaz, the first one of the benefits of knowing the root letters is that you will be able to convert the root letters into the different patterns of fi'l. So you can convert it into a mudari', you can convert it into a masdar, you can convert it into different things according to your needs. As opposed to someone who relies only on listening to the Arabs, then such a person will have to listen to the mudari' in order to be able to use the mudari'. But once you have the qawa'id in your hands, once you have the principles in your mind, you can derive the fi'l mudari' مثلا, or fi'l amr, for example, by your own self, by yourself. طيب. So this is how it's going to help us. This is how knowing the root letters helps us in deriving the different forms of the word, or مثلا, or different derivatives of the word according to our needs. And we don't need to it does not remain a must for us to have heard some Arab say it or to have read it in some Arabic book. We can derive it by our own self. Helps in understanding the meaning of the word. Na'am, it helps in understanding the meaning of the word as well, because each root has some meaning that it denotes. For example, kataba مثلا. Now kataba has some meaning that it this root kataba. I'm not talking about the fi'l kataba. I'm saying this root that is kataba has a meaning that it denotes, and it denotes the meaning of it denotes gathering of something. Kataba denotes gathering of something. And the meaning of this asl, the meaning of the root is to gather. So it's said in the lugha مثلا, in Arabic it's said مثلا تكتبت خيل القوم مثلا. يعني تكتبت خيل القوم يعني the horses have gathered. طيب. This common meaning, or this original meaning of the root, must be present in some form in all of the derived verbs from that particular root. For example, now from kaf taba we derive the verb kataba. Now kataba means to write. Here we said the root means to gather. طيب. Now there must be some connection with gathering and collecting things and kataba, that means to write. Kataba, which means to write. There must be some common denominator between the two. How? So can someone tell me what is common between the linguistic meaning of the root kaf taba and the word that is to write kataba? There must be something common between them.
When you are writing, you are gathering letters.
Ahsant, Mumtaz. When you're writing, you gather and collect different letters in one place. So that is why the Arabs used kaf taba in order to express the verb that is to write. Is that clear, inshallah? Likewise, ikhwan, مثلا, you have fassara. طيب, fassara or tafsir. Let me just give you tafsir. So who can tell me the root letters, the 3 root letters of tafsir? What are the 3 root letters of tafsir? Now this word has 5 letters.
Fa, sin, ra.
Fa and sin and ra. طيب, ممتاز. Fa, sin and ra. Now this root that is fa, sin and ra must have some meaning. So can someone tell me what is the meaning of fa, sin and ra in Arabic? The meaning of the root, and not the fi'l fassara. Fasara or fasin ra in linguistically means to لحظة. It means to uncover something. Fasara yafsiru يعني كشفه, to uncover something. Now can someone tell me why this same root fasin ra is used for tafsir, that is the explanation of the Quran, or just to explain anything, be it the Quran or something else? There must be something common between tafsir and fasara, fasin ra. Yani what is common between explaining something and uncovering something? What do we do when we explain something?
We're uncovering what is not clear.
أحسنت ممتاز. We uncover the hidden meanings that are hidden to most people. We uncover it for them and we show it to them. We expose it to them. We tell them of the meanings that would have been hidden to them. So the teacher explains مثلا the Quran. يعني المدرس يفسر القرآن. يفسر القرآن. He is teaching to the students the Quran. يعني he is telling them the meanings that were hidden to them. So there is always a connection between the meaning of the root, the asl. طبعا the root is called asl in Arabic, and the meaning of the words that are derived from that same asl. طيب. For those who do يعني refer back to dictionaries in Arabic, can someone mention to me one dictionary that يعني that mentions the meanings of the asl? Hi Shabab. There are dictionaries who would يعني directly mention to you the meaning of فسر كتب, but there are dictionaries that are يعني مهتم ب they first mention to you the meaning of the asl and then they start mentioning the meanings of the different words that are derived from that asl. So then they will say كتب means to write and etc. Huh?
Once where dictionary?
لا لا it's an Arabic dictionary, all Arabic dictionary. It's called مقاييس اللغة يا شباب. For those who know and those who can refer back to it, it's called مقاييس اللغة by Ibn Faris. Now, what does he do? He starts, and when you look for a particular root, he would start by mentioning the meaning of that root, and this is called يعني فقه اللغة, يعني the understanding of language, to be able to understand the subtle and nuanced meanings of and find details in the language. طيب, so he starts by mentioning the meaning of the asl, and then he moves on to mention the different words that have been derived from that asl. So in order to have a better understanding of a word, especially when it comes to يعني explaining the Quran مثلا, or when it comes to يعني explaining the hadith, because you're explaining classical Arabic text, so now you need to go to the linguistic meaning of the word. This comes in very such dictionaries come in handy. When it comes to the Quran or the words mentioned in the Quran, there is another one that is by Raghib al-Asfahani, مفردات ألفاظ القرآن. صحيح يا شباب؟ مفردات ألفاظ القرآن. He also starts by mentioning the meaning of the asl, and then he moves on to the different verbs and words, be it nouns or verbs that have been derived from that asl. So these are very, very يعني beneficial for the student. طيب. One of the benefits that was mentioned was by one of the sisters. She said that helps in understanding the meaning of the word. The other benefit is, ya ikhwan, that you can refer back to the dictionaries. Now, for most dictionaries, except for those apps that are now available in the phone, like Ma'ani, etc., most other dictionaries, ya ikhwan, in order to refer back to them, you must know the asl. You search by the asl. So, for example, ya ikhwan, you want to look for the meaning of, let's say, tafsir. So where would you have to look for يعني in order to find the meaning of tafsir? Would you look into ta, or would you look into some other letter?
Look into fa.
You would look into fa, because the dictionaries are organized in according to their usul, according to their roots. The words in the dictionaries are organized according to their roots. Because then once you enter into the root fa sin ra, then he will mention to you all that has been derived from this same root. So he will say fasara means kashafa, and the fassara يعني sharaha. He will say tafsir ay al-sharh. Then he would say مثلا all other different derivatives that are all derived from fa sin ra will be explained in that chapter of fa sin ra. But if you don't know the root, you keep looking in ta and you will never be able to find the word tafsir. You will never be able to find the word tafsir. However, if you are referring to the dictionaries that are, for example, al-Ma'ani, Ma'ani.com, or their dictionary, their mobile app, then you can write the whole word and they will give you the meaning of it. They will find the root for you themselves. So this is another benefit, ya ikhwan, of learning Sarf and learning or being able to identify the root letters of a particular word, that you can refer back to the dictionaries. Okay, before we move on, let me just recommend to you a few dictionaries. Now, it's very important, ya ikhwan, that especially in Sarf, that you refer to the dictionaries very often. Some of the dictionaries that you must have for real beginners, they must have al-Ma'ani. They can search in the Play Store or in the App Store, they'll find it. Al-Ma'ani, Al-Ma'ani Arabi Inglisi, or Inglisi Arabi, so that they could have English translations as well for the words they're looking for. That's very important. They must also have Al-Ma'ani, that is Arabic to Arabic dictionary. Now, moving on to the more proper dictionaries, those who can buy it or it's available to them in the maktabat. For Sarf, it is very important to have a dictionary that is called al-Mu'jam al-Wasita. Al-Mu'jam al-Wasita. Very important to have this one. Al-Mu'jam al-Wasita. And inshallah, we'll explain later on why is it so important to have it. Al-Mu'jam al-Wasit. The other dictionary, which is also Arabic to English, but you have to search by the root letters, a very beneficial dictionary, that is the Hanswear. Everyone, I think most of you know of it. Those who don't, they will find it very, very beneficial. Hanswear, Arabic to English. For those who can refer to Arabic to Urdu dictionaries, they have Al-Qamus Al-Jadid. They can find it on the Play Store as well. Al-Qamus Al-Jadid. They have in Arabic to Urdu and Urdu to Arabic. And then they also have a very encyclopedic dictionary, that is Al-Qamus Al-Wahid, which is larger than Al-Qamus Al-Jadid. Al-Qamus Al-Wahid. This is, they have more, I think, details and more words in it. Hanswear, and then, okay, these are the, Hanswear is free on Play Store. There is another dictionary, I think it's called Lane's Arabic Lexical or something like that, but it's not free. So I wouldn't recommend that for now. But there is a website which has a bunch of dictionaries on it, that is edgetal.com. You can find Arabic to English dictionaries, you can find Arabic to Arabic dictionaries, lots of dictionaries. edgetal.com. You can find Elaine's lexical as well here. You can find Hanswear here as well. But Hanswear, alhamdulillah, now has an app, so it's easier to refer to that app. And finally, ikhwan, for those who can refer back to the Arabic dictionaries, and Mu'jam al-Wasit is not, I haven't found a good app for Mu'jam al-Wasit, because the most important detail that we have in al-Mu'jam al-Wasit is not mentioned in the apps. Whenever they convert it into an app, they fail to mention the most important detail pertaining to Sarf in those apps. So if you can buy the Mu'jam, you can buy the hard copy of the Mu'jam, then that is going to be the best solution for you. I haven't yet found any good app for al-Mu'jam al-Wasit. So al-Mu'jam al-Wasit is a must-buy for whoever can. And finally, I would just recommend to those who can refer back to the Arabic dictionaries, I would recommend to them an app which has 4 dictionaries that are enough for you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, in Arabic. They have, this app is called Al-Bahith Al-Qur'ani. Al-Bahith Al-Qur'ani. It's a free app. It's available on App Store, Play Store. And it has 4 dictionaries: As-Sihah, Lisan al-Arab, Al-Qamus Al-Muhit, and Maqayis al-Lugha. مقاييس اللغة that we mentioned earlier by Ibn Faris is also available in this app, that is al-Bahith al-Qur'ani. So al-Bahith al-Qur'ani. So hence where you for those looking for Arabic to English, they should they must download al-Maani إنجليزي عربي and Handsware. معاني إنجليزي عربي, you don't have to. A brother is asking what's the difference between al-Maani and Handsware. Al-Maani يا أخي, you don't have to search for the root word. You can just type in the word, the whole word. You don't have to type in the root letters. So it saves you the effort to first find out what the root letters are and then search for them. Rather, you can just put the whole word and it will find for you. As for Handsware, you have to look by the root letters, and then you must also know some of the Sarf. You must know the different patterns of a word, because the author of Handsware, he numbers those patterns. He says pattern number 1 means this. Now you don't know what pattern number 1 is. It might be it's fa'ala مثلا. Then he says pattern number 2 مثلا افتعل, or pattern number 3 مثلا تفعل, pattern number 4 فعل. So he numbers those patterns. He says pattern number 1 means this, pattern number 2 means this, pattern number 3 means this. So in order to be able to refer back to Handsware, you first need to learn a bit of Sarf and then know the different terms that Handsware or the dictionary uses, and then you can be you will be able to benefit from that dictionary fully. As for those looking for Arabic dictionaries, they must buy al-Mu'jam al-Wasit. For modern Arabic, they should look for al-Ma'ani Arabi, and al-Bahith al-Qur'ani is a must-have. Al-Bahith al-Qur'ani is a must-have. طيب, Allah musta'an, it's time for Isha here. Sorry, Allah musta'an, I couldn't, So let me just go for prayer. Bismillah ta'ala. Once we come back, we'll continue with our lesson. نقف هنا الآن. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. طيب. Let me just repeat this for those who I forgot to turn on the recording. So just repeat this for those who will listen to the recording later on. So after we are done with the Qawa'id Sarfiyya that explain to us how the different verbs and words behave in Arabic language, we will move on to the different derivatives of the fi'l. By this we mean the different nouns, different meanings, different words that can be derived from the same 3-letter root, which can be from a fi'l madi. If you have a fi'l madi, you can derive from it the mudari', you can derive from it the masdar, you can derive fi'l amr, you can derive something that is called ism fa'il or ism maf'ul or ism al-zaman, ism al-makan, ism al-ala, or al-masdar al-mimi, or sighat al-mubalagha or sifa al-mushabbaha, all of these. So what are the things that can be derived from a particular root, and how it can be derived, and what meanings does it denote or give? All of this bi'idhnillahi ta'ala will be learned in the 5th muqaddimah, and then inshallah we will be going into the book bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. طيب. So a short introduction to the science of Sarf. What is Sarf? What is its ta'rif, its definition? طيب. You can say Sarf, you can say Tasrif. Both are correct. يقال الصرف ويقال التصريف. Both are correct. طيب أحمد تقرأ أنت تقرأ ولا عندك عشاء الآن؟
لا شيخ فاضي الحمد لله.
خلاص يلا. إذا اقرأ.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. أما بعد, يقال الصرف ويقال التصريف.
Both can be said. The science of Sarf, some call it Sarf, some call it Tasrif. The Sarf means, and Sarf and Tasrif mean the same thing. So, or similar things. طيب يلا. والتصريف.
والتصريف لغة التغيير. لغة التغيير.
تصريف in linguistically it means to change something. فمثلا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, he mentioned تصريف الرياح. تصريف الرياح means to make the winds go from one place to another. So the alteration, the change that is brought about in the winds. كذلك Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلبي على طاعتك. O Allah, the one who can change the condition, the state of the qulub, of the hearts, turn my heart towards your obedience. Turn my heart toward your obedience. So tasrif, turning something, changing something, this is called tasrif. طيب. What does it mean يعني in the terminology of the Arabic science and اصطلاحا
تحويل الأصل الواحد إلى أبنية مختلفة للدلالة على معان مقصودة لا تحصل إلا بها.
It means تحويل الأصل الواحد, to convert one root. أصل means the root. By root we mean the 3-letter root or the 4-letter root. To convert it into different structures, different forms, different patterns. أبنية مختلفة. أبنية. بناء. أبنية is the جمع of بناء. أبنية is the جمع of بناء. And بناء means the structure. أبنية is the جمع of لحظة جمع بناء. جمع بناء. And it means different structures. طيب. So you can, and it's the same root letter can be converted into different patterns, different structures. أبنية مختلفة. Why do we convert them into different patterns and different structures? للدلالة على أو للدلالة دلالة دلالة ثلاثة كلها صحيحة. دلالة دلالة دلالة. It's مثلث. للدلالة أو للدلالة على معان مقصودة. In order to denote particular meanings that are intended. يعني you don't do them you do it on purpose. يعني you convert the root into a particular structure to be able to denote a meaning that you intend. طيب للدلالة على معان مقصودة لا تحصل إلا بها, which cannot be expressed except through these structures. طيب how does this happen? يعني I can't really understand, I can't really picturize, I can't really visualize how does it happen. Inshallah, with the examples, it will become clear. But before we get into the examples, we want to first learn يا إخوان, and we just want to complete this paragraph. إذن علم الصرف يلا.
إذن علم الصرف يدرس بنية الكلمة والمعاني التي تدل عليها.
طيب إذن, hence علم الصرف, the science of صرف, يدرس بنية الكلمة. It studies the structure of the word. طيب. And the meanings that are denoted by that structure. طيب. The structure of the word and the meanings that are denoted by that structure. المعاني التي تدل عليها. طيب. وأنواع الكلمة التي يدرسها علم الصرف. What are the types of words? Before we mention what types of words does صرف study, tell me how many types of words are there? يعني there are 3 types of words. What are they? Remind me.
اسم فعل حرف.
اسم فعل حرف. طيب. Which of if I ask you to choose 2 out of these 3, which of the 2 you think would be subject of the science of Sarf?
اسم الفعل.
اسم الفعل. أحسن. Then the harf is not studied in Sarf. Harf, because حروف are always they always or mostly remain in the same state. In the state they are in, always, almost always, except for example يعني على مثلا. Now على is عين لام and alif مقصورة, but when على is used with a ضمير, then that alif مقصورة goes back to its original state, that was the ya, it becomes عليه or علي or عليك. So these are the very few يعني times when a change occurs in a harf. Else the huruf remain the way they are always. So the huruf are not something that we study in Sarf. Rather, the science of Sarf studies the changes that occur in the structure of asma and the changes that occur in the structures of af'al. So it's asma and af'al. Asma and af'al. أنواع الكلمة التي يدرسها علم الصرف. 2 types of words, al-asma and al-af'al. As for al-huruf, they are not studied in al-sarf. طيب. Are all asma studied in al-sarf? Not necessarily. The asma al-mu'raba only. But sometimes there are some issues in which some asma mabniya will also be studied in sarf. For example, alladhi becomes alladhani or alladhaini. So the change that occurs with the muthanna, this is something that might be considered in sarf, but generally speaking, it only deals with al-asma al-mu'raba. Al-asma al-mu'raba. As for al-asma al-mabniya, they remain in the state they are always in. That's why they're called mabniya. Mabniya means it's fixed into a particular state. The ism mabni is the one that is fixed into a particular state, does not undergo any change. But asma mu'raba, they undergo some change. They do undergo some change. So it's the topic of the science of Sarf is al-Asma' al-Mu'raba and al-Af'aal al-Mutasarrifa. Al-Af'aal al-Mutasarrifa. What is al-Af'aal al-Mutasarrifa? Yani there are two types of af'al, mutasarrifa and jamida. By jamida we refer to af'al like laysa. Remember laysa, we said that laysa does not have a mudari', it does not have an amr. So we don't study laysa in sarf, as such. We only study af'al mutasarrifa, which have an amr, which have a mudari', which have a madi, which have all three forms of verbs. طيب. Now let's give some examples of how the change in a word denotes a change in the meaning of something. Firstly, let us give us examples for تصريف الأسماء. Now we have here in this table we have some asma, and they are undergoing changes. They are undergoing some changes. So the first ism that we have, ya ikhwan, مثلا, is katib. What is the meaning of katib, ya ikhwan? What is a katib? A writer. Mumtaz. A writer, the person who writes. طيب. Katibun. Now, if we want to say two writers, then what do? We add an alif and nun. We add an alif and nun with a kasra, and it becomes two writers. So now, in order to express two writers, we have to alter the word a little. So instead of katibun, we'll have to make it into katibani. So we added an alif and nun. And hence it now denotes two writers. It gives the meaning of two writers instead of one writer, right? Like if you want to say more than two writers, now we have two options. You can use Jam' taksir, or you can use Jam' salim, right? Jam' taksir, the broken plurals. So you say kuttabun. Kuttabun is the jama' of katib, right? So now this word has undergone some change. What changes has it undergone? This word katib, when it was converted into kuttab, what are the changes that occurred in the word? Can someone point them out for me? A few changes, Yani.
There is an extra ta.
There is an extra ta mumtaz. The alif has gone missing. The alif that was before the ta has gone missing. The kaf had a fatha, now it has a dhamma. That's pretty much it. And they have an alif after the ta now. طيب. So now these are some changes that occurred in katibun, and because of these changes, the meaning has changed. Now there is a new meaning to katib, kuttab. Kuttab means writers instead of one writer. طيب. We have another option that we could use Jam' salim. We have two types of Jam' salim, Jam' mudhakkar salim, Jam' muannath salim. All of us remember that, hopefully. So what do we do in order to make it a Jam' salim? What do we have to do to katib in order to make it a Jam' salim?
Add waw and nun.
Add a waw and remove the tanween and add a waw and nun. Remove the tanween and add a waw and nun with the fatha. So then it becomes, if you do that, it becomes katibuna. طيب. Now, by adding a waw and nun, by changing the structure of the word, we were able to express another meaning. We were able to denote a meaning that we couldn't have expressed by using the word katib. طيب. Now there is something that is called musaghar or tasghir. Tasghir is they call it the diminutive form of a word. Yani, if something is small in size, for example, let's say there's a small pen and you want to say this is a small pen. So instead of saying qalam, you would say qulaym. Qulaym means a small pen. طيب. مثلا Hasan, Hussein. Hasan, Hussein means a small Hasan. A smaller, junior Hasan. So perhaps that's why Hussein radiallahu anhu was named Hussein, because he was younger to Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu. طيب. Likewise, ya ikhwan, for example, you have kitab. So you would say kitab, kutayib. Kutayib yani a small book. Now tasghir can be employed for different reasons, for different purposes. It can be employed in order to express the يعني the size of something that it's, and if it's smaller than the regular size, so we'd say مثلا كتيب, small book, قليم, small pen. For example, what else do we have? باب, بويب, or بويب, بويب, sorry, بويب يعني a small door. So this is to express the size of something. It can also be used in order to ridicule someone, or يعني make fun of someone. So you would say يعني مثلا يعني you would say يا صغير, or to ridicule him, or make fun of him. يعني you small, oh small one, يا صغير, oh small, oh very very small one. صغير is already small. When you say صغير, it means يعني even smaller. يعني the smaller of small. صغير. So this can be to يعني ridicule him and to make fun of him, belittle him. by it can be used to belittle someone. It can also be used to يعني express for example compassion towards someone. So for example يعني whenever يعني you would find in the Quran مثلا Luqman, when he is addressing his son, he's saying يا بني, يا بني. It doesn't just mean my son, it means oh my little son, oh my little son, يا بني. Instead of saying يبني, he could have said يا يبني يعني oh my son, but he said يا بني in order to express love and compassion. So تصغير can be employed for a number of reasons, but يعني whatever, and regardless of the reason it's employed for, there is a certain change in the structure that takes place. So for example, in katib, there is a change in the structure that will take place, and we will write it as kuwaitib. Katib, we will be writing it as kuwaitib. Now what will kuwaitib mean? Kuwaitib will mean a small or a little writer. So for example, someone is يعني someone who writes letters, or someone who writes books, who is very young in his age, we would call him kuwaitib مثلا. طيب. And then finally we have something that is called a nasab. A nasab is يعني to attribute something to someone, or someone to something, or someone. So for example, you would attribute yourself to a country. So you say مثلا Mustafa is from Nigeria, so you would say Mustafa النيجيري, النيجيري. طيب. For example, let's say Abdul Ahad is from India, so we'll say Abdul Ahad al-Hindi, al-Hindi. طيب. Ahmad مثلا is from, or let's say Fahmi Nasir is from America or from Yemen, so you call him Fahmi مثلا al-Yamani or al-Ameriki. So in order to attribute someone to some place, you would use this nasab, or you would use nasab to attribute someone to another person. For example, someone who studies the madhab of al-Imam al-Shafi'i, so you would say fulanun al-Shafi'i. Yani that means that he has studied and he has learned and he teaches the madhab of al-Imam al-Shafi'i. Fulan is Hanbali. Hanbali means that he studies the fiqh of the books that have been written in fiqh by the Hanabila. Or someone is Hanafi, yani he studies the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa. Or someone is Maliki, so he studies the fiqh of Imam Malik. So he's being attributed to a person here. Or for example, مثلا, he can be attributed to a profession. He can be attributed to a profession. For example, يعني مثلا فلان I can't really recall any example right now that when nasab is used to attribute someone to a profession. Can anyone يعني mention some examples? When someone is attributed to a profession, when you use the usloob of nasab to attribute someone to a particular profession. مثلا لا 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 شوف الطبيب in nasab you must use a ya. You must use a ya at the end. You must use a ya at the end. So just like كاتبي, أرضي, قلمي, وهكذا. هندسي, I'm not sure if you call it an engineer, you call him a muhandis. But from the Salaf, there were a few people who were attributed to their professions, but not by using nasab, not by using the trade or the nasab. Khalid al-Hadza, we have Salih, Zakwan, Samman, Zayyat. So no, we don't have that. I don't remember anyone being attributed to his profession right now. But there are different purposes for which you could use this uslub of nasab. Also, you can use this nasab to attribute someone to a particular people, not just a place where you live, rather a particular people. So whenever you want to attribute someone to a tribe that they belong to, you use this. So you call for Umar radiallahu anhu was from Banu Adi, so he will be al-Adawi. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is from Banu Hashim, so he will be al-Hashimi. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i was from Banu Muttalib, so he is al-Muttalibi. Likewise, someone who belongs to the Ansar is called al-Ansari, right? So or al-Khazraji, or someone who belongs to the tribe of Khazraj from the Ansar. وهكذا. الساعاتي أحسنت. الساعاتي is a very common used nasab for people who work as watchmakers. So people who are watchmakers, they might call themselves as-Sa'ati, right? So this is how nasab is used to attribute himself to his profession, وهكذا. طيب يا اخوان, so these are different reasons for which a nasab is employed. How do you make this how do you derive a nasab? The easiest way, or the standard way, is to add a ya with a shadda at the end. But sometimes it's not as simple as this. For example, when it comes to مثلا Makkah, so you wouldn't say Makkati, you would say Makkiyun. Or when it comes to Jeddah, the correct is, some people call it Jeddawi. Some people call the people of Jeddah Jeddawi. However, Jeddawi is incorrect, and the correct is Jaddiyun. Now the issue comes when, for example, when you are attributing someone to Al-Madinah. Now what would you say? Would you say Al-Madini or Al-Madani? Would you call him Al-Madani, or would you call him Al-Madini? Al-Madani, naam. So this is where the technical details come into play, and that's why we have to study this topic of nasab in detail. So the standard way, or the simplest way of making a nasab, is to add a ya shadda at the end of a word, and then you have attributed to that person or that thing to a particular thing or person or trade or profession or a place or a people. But it's always not as simple as that. Sometimes for example, a person who belongs to Maru. There's a city right now, it's in Afghanistan, I guess, right? Maru. Now a person that belongs to the city of Maru is called Al-Marwazi. Ajib, right? This is strange. There are some strange, sometimes some of the nasab is strange at times. Okay, lahza, 1 second, ikhwan. Right. So now katibiyun is a person who is being attributed to a katib, or to the profession of writing something down. But likewise, ya ikhwan, مثلا, if you take the example of ard, what is the meaning of ard? Ard means earth or floor or a land, a piece of land, right? Now when we talk about al-ard, so if you want to say two lands, you would say ardan. If you want to say many lands, but are you going to use jam' taksir, you would say aradi. You want to use jam' salim, you would say araduna, right? If you want to say a small piece of land, you would say uraydah. And if you want to attribute someone to a land, you would say ardiyun. Likewise, ya ikhwan, for example, if you want to use qalam, مثلا qalam, you want to say two pens, you would say qalamani. You want to say many pens, you would say aqlamun. There is no jam' salim for qalam, so I haven't mentioned any. Tasqir, you want to say a small pen, you would say qulaymun. Or you want to attribute someone to qalam, you would say qalamiyun. So this is how you can notice a few changes in the structure of the word. That same root is being used in different structures to give and denote different meanings. Now let's come and let's mention or discuss some examples of fi'l. So now we have here on the left side, we have a table which has examples for fi'l. Now we have fi'l and the different mushtaqat, different derivatives that are derived from the fi'l. So we have fi'l madi, and then after fi'l madi, we keep deriving different things. We can derive the mudari', اسم الفاعل, اسم المفعول, مصدر ميمي, اسم الزمان والمكان, اسم الآلة, الصفة المشبهة, صيغة المبالغة, etc. These are different things that can be derived from the same fi'l. Not with every fi'l. Yani sometimes there are some things that cannot be derived from a particular fi'l. Just like we could not derive a jam' salim from qalam, yani because it doesn't exist. You don't say qalamuna and qalamina. Likewise, sometimes, yani for example, you could see these empty boxes because we don't have an ism al-ala, or I don't know of any from muallim or muta'allim or muta'alim or musta'lim. You don't have a sifa mushabba or sighat al-mubalagha. So there are things sometimes that cannot be derived. And some of these mushtaqat cannot be derived from particular af'al. But that's why I chose an example which for which we could derive most of the mushtaqat. So let's start. So the root is ayn, lam, and mim. Alima. What is the meaning of alima, ya ikhwan? Alima means to know something. To know. Alima, to know. Right. Now what happens is, if I turn this alima and I convert it into allama, can you first point out the change that occurred into it in the word? What change occurred in the word?
Two lambs.
Two lambs. That was very important, and a fatha on the lam. طيب ممتاز. Extra lam. That extra lam is very important. Now, what happened when I added an extra lam to alima? What is the meaning of allama? Hi Shabab. Sahla. To teach. Now you see, by adding an extra lam, you change the meaning. Alima, which was to know, now it became to teach. طيب. I have allama. Alima, to know. Allama, to teach. I add a ta to allama. So it becomes ta'allama. What does ta'allama mean? To learn. طيب, to learn. لحظة. To learn. طيب. What is the difference between to know and to learn? Hi Shabab. Who can tell me the difference between to know something and to learn something?
You may know something without necessarily learning it, but to learn means to actively seek to know.
Mumtaz, you have to actively seek something, the knowledge of something. You have to put some extra effort. So learn, at the end of this process, you end up knowing something. But in ta'allama, there is some extra effort that is put. All right? So now, alima and ta'allama, they are similar. You end up knowing something. But in ta'allama, you had to make an effort in order to know it. And in alima, you just got to know it. طيب? And here we come to a qaida, which is very important. We have mentioned this in tafsir as well a few times, I guess. زيادة المبنى تدل على زيادة المعنى. So this means the increase in the structure of the word. By increase I mean the more the letters in the structure of the word, it denotes increase. Let's just roughly translate it in the meaning. And by increase here we mean there is more emphasis, or there is something in its greater form when the structure has more letters into it. Right? So alima, just to know, but ta'allama, to put an extra effort to know something. طيب وهكذا. خرج, to just exit, to just go out. تخرج, that means something perhaps you have to put an extra effort in order to do تخرج, right? Likewise, for example, مثلا you have what else do we have? So المهم يعني there can be different meanings that can be denoted by a particular pattern. Now يا إخوان مثلا let's move on to the لحظة. طيب. Now in علم I added a ta at the beginning and an alif after the ain, so it became ta'alama. Now who can tell me the meaning of ta'alama? What is the meaning of ta'alama? To pretend to know. Mumtaz, to pretend to know. Now ta'alama is not to know, it's not to learn, it is to pretend to know. And someone is trying to act like a scholar, so you would say, and he's not a scholar, and what he's talking is rubbish. So he would say he is, and what is the word for what he's doing? Is we say يتعالم. He is pretending to be an alim. Fulan is muta'alim. He pretends to be an alim while he is not. So this is the meaning of ta'alam. طيب. Now, what is the meaning of in alima? I add an alif, sin, and ta. An alif, sin, and ta. Now, what is the meaning of ista'lama? By adding an alif, sin, ta, what is the change that occurs in the meaning? What does it mean to seek to know? Mumtaz. To seek to know. And we know that the alif, sin, ta means talab. Alif, sin, ta means talab, right? So for example, or mostly it means talab. So whenever you use alif, or mostly when you use alif, sin, ta, it means to seek, to ask for something. What are you asking for? You're asking for information. Ista'lama, inquiry. You might have seen it in on some websites if you haven't visited shops in Arab countries, but they have something called an isti'lamat. Isti'lamat and inquiries. You want to inquire about something. So ista'lama, to ask knowledge of something, to ask information of something, to ask for ilm about something. Istafsara, to ask for the explanation of something. So you have istifsarat, you have isti'lamat, right? So this is how the alif, sin, ta. Now you add alif, sin, ta and you change the, subhanallah, the meaning that is denoted by that same root. So now look at how by altering a few things in the word, in the verb, the meaning completely changes. طيب. Now let's move on to the different things or different words or different nouns that can be derived from this fi'l, each fi'l madi. Now look at each fi'l madi. Let's start with alima. The mudari', we all know what the mudari' is, ya'lam. Ismul fa'il, this is something that is new to us. We will be explaining this later on, but just for now, ismul fa'il is a noun that is used to denote the person who is carrying out that fi'l. So for example, alima ya'lamu. This is a fi'l, someone is knowing. But what is that person who is knowing and who is trying to know something? What is that person called? Ismul fa'il. What is the name of the subject, the doer of that verb? What is the doer of the verb called? The doer of the verb is called alim. Alimun. Ala wasn't fa'il. So the doer of the verb is called fa'il. And ismul fa'il of alima, and someone who is doing this, carrying out this verb alima ya'lamu, he will be called alim. طيب. Something that is being known, ismul maf'ul. Something that the verb is applying to. What is that thing called? So something that is being known will be called ma'lumun, right? What is this action of knowing something called? What is the masdar, the gerund, the verbal noun? It's ilm. طبعا masdar mimi is similar to masdar, but it has a meme in it, and we'll explain later on how to derive it. It's called ma'lam. Ismul makan and ismul zaman. And if, for example, there is a place of knowledge, for example, or place of information, That will be called ma'lam. Okay. Ismul ala. Ismul ala means the word that is used to denote the tool with which you perform that fi'l, with which you carry out that fi'l. So, for example, you have the fi'l of hammering something that is called taraqa yatruqu, to hammer, right? So the hammer itself is called mitraqa. It's called mitraqa. So this is ismul ala, yani the tool of hammering, the tool of hammering something, mitraqa. Likewise, for example, what do you have? Fataha, to open something. What is the tool of opening something called? This is easy. The tool that we used to miftah. Ahsant. Miftahun. Miftahun. Right? So this is the tool for opening something. Likewise, ya ikhwan, for example, we have miftah. Okay. What is the tool for miftah? And okay, what are the scales on which we weigh something? What are they called? To do the wazn of something. What are the scales called? The balance, the scale on which we weigh something. Meezan. Ahsant. The Meezan. It's called the Meezan. Right? Likewise. And so this is called ismul ala, the tool of doing something. The tool for performing a particular fi'l. Meezan, the tool that is used to weigh things. Miftah, the tool that is used to open things. Likewise, we mentioned before that, what did we mention before it? Subhanallah, nasitana. Ala kulli hal, likewise, you have the tools for washing. So what the tool for washing is called, مثلا غسالة. So this is a relatively modern ismul ala, غسالة or barrada or thallaja. Thallaja, the thing that is used to freeze food. Thalj is ice, so thallaja is the thing that is used to convert something into ice, thallaja, or to just simply to cool something. Likewise, ghassala, to wash something. What else do we have? We have we call here the screwdriver, we call it يعني فك يفك, يعني to open something. So we call the screwdriver, we call it mifak, right? I don't know if it's likewise in the Fusha, but we call it mifak. Mifak يعني something that is used to يعني open something, some screw. Al-Muhim, coming back, so this is ismul ala. So ismul ala, it has a certain pattern on upon which we will be deriving the word for the tool that is used to carry out this job of, or this verb of alima. Likewise, there is something that's called sifa mushabbaha, and sifa mushabbaha is something that is a permanent characteristic of something or someone. So if مثلا you say طويل, طويل, someone is tall, طويل, right? Alim, someone who is knowledgeable. Faqih, someone who is a faqih. And this is a permanent characteristic, a permanent attribute of that person. Such a thing is called sifa mushabbaha. So how do we derive it? In this particular case, we said alima, we added a ya, and alim was the sifa mushabbaha. We'll study all of these. Ma'alaykum. Yani if you don't understand these right now, it's fine. I'm just giving you the examples of how the science of sarf helps us achieve different meanings. Likewise, there is sigha mubalagha. Mubalagha means exaggeration, right? Sigha mubalagha. How to express something that is done in great number, or something that is done very often, or someone who does something very often. So you say allam al-ghuyub, someone who has knowledge of everything that is unseen. Allam al-ghuyub, right? So allam is a sigha mubalagha. It's used to exaggerate. Alim al-ghuyub, allam al-ghuyub. There's a difference between the two. طيب. If we move on to the allama, to teach. Yu'allimu, present tense of to allama. Mu'allim, the teacher. The one who is being taught, mu'allam. The one who is being taught. Ta'aleem, the process of teaching. Masdar mimi, again, it's mu'allam. And the place where where the verb or this action of teaching takes place is called معلم again. نقول مثلا هنا تعلم. The person who learns is called متعلم. The thing that is learned is called متعلم. To learn this action is called تعلم. Right? Likewise يا إخوان مثلا تعالم. To pretend to know. Person who pretends to know is called متعالم. The thing that he pretends to know is called ربما يعني متعالم فيه أو متعالم له يعني حسب according to the context. And this action of pretending to know is called تعالم. طيب يا إخوان. Likewise استعلم, to inquire about something, to seek to know about something. طيب is the person who does that is called مستعلم. The person who he seeks from to know something or something that some information that he's seeking is called مستعلم. This action itself is called استعلام. وهكذا. So see how one root that is عين لام ميم was converted into a range of different words to denote different meanings. طيب. This is Sarf and this is Tasrif. Which of the two, or are we going to learn both the Tasrif of the Asma and Af'aal, or only one of the two? We are going to be learning in this book only the Tasrif of al-Af'aal. Tasrif of al-Af'aal and not the Tasrif of al-Asma. سماعة نظارة أحسنت. سماعة نظارة headphones. سماعات نظارة the tool that you use to look through, that is the spectacles. سماعة the headphones, the tool that you use to listen through. سماعة. In this book يا إخوان we will only be focusing on the تصريف of أفعال and its مشتقات. طبعا the مشتقات are not mentioned within the book, but we will along with the study of each pattern of فعل we will be studying the different مشتقات. يعني by مشتقات what do we mean by مشتقات؟ ده اسم الفاعل، اسم المفعول، مصدر، اسم زمان مكان، اسم الآلة، صفة مشبهة، صيغة مبالغة. We will be doing it along with the meanings of each each pattern of word. طيب. Let's just end with this last topic, that is al-Meezan as-Sarfi. So this is the second مقدمة, al-Meezan as-Sarfi. Al-Meezan as-Sarfi يا إخوان is the scale that is used to, again, Meezan, the tool that is used to weigh something. The tool that is used to weigh different words in Arabic. What do we mean by weighing a particular word? By weighing, we mean to be able to express the positions of the root letters, to be able to distinguish the positions of the root letters from those of the additional letters. Now, if you remember in the examples that we mentioned in the previous slide, ya ikhwan and ya akhawat, here we have 3 root letters, right? Alima. Now, in allama, we added a letter. In ta'allama, we added 2 letters. In ta'alama, we added 2 letters as well. In ista'lama, we added 3 letters. So, how can we express this, or how can we express which of these letters are the root letters and which ones are additional letters? So for example, in allama we had an additional lam. In ta'allama we had an additional ta and an additional lam. In ta'alama we had an alif and a ta. So we have additional letters. But we must be able to distinguish between the additional letters, that are al-huruf al-za'ida, and al-huruf al-asliya, which are the root letters. So how do we do that? We do that through something that is called al-Meezan as-Sarfi. What is al-Meezan as-Sarfi and how to apply the Meezan as-Sarfi? We are going to learn in this slide. Ahmad, إذا كنت موجودا فقرأ بارك الله فيك.
الميزان الصرفي. الميزان الصرفي هو طريقة للتعبير عن وزن الفعل.
Okay, what is the wazn of fi'l? The pattern of the fi'l or the scale of the fi'l. What do we mean by that? أي مواضع الحروف
مواضع الحروف الأصلية والحروف الزائدة في الفعل.
by using ميزان الصرفي you can denote and point out the different positions in which the root letters are mentioned and the places and positions in which the additional letters are present. طيب. ويعبر عن وزن الفعل يلا.
ويعبر عن وزن الفعل بالميزان الصرفي بوضع
بوضع الفاء
الفاء في موضع الحرف الأصلي الأول فاء الفعل.
طيب. How do you use ميزان الصرفي? How do you use it? يعني how to express the different pattern, the pattern of the word by using الميزان الصرفي? What do you do to do that? In order to use ميزان الصرفي to express the pattern of a word, you put بوضع, you put. What do you put? You put fa. Where do you put fa? You put fa in the place of the first root letter, الحرف الأصلي الأول. And this first root letter, يعني generally we have 3 root letters or 4 root letters, right? So the first root letter is called فاء الفعل. It's called the fa of the fi'l. So when you're using ميزان الصرفي, what do? You put fa in place of the first root letter. So for example, if you have, let's say تعالم. طيب. Now what do you do? Firstly, tell me what are the root letters of تعالم? What are the 3 root letters?
عين لام ميم.
عين لام ميم. So which one is the first root letter يا إخوان? It's the عين. أحسنتم. طيب. Now what do you do in order to be able to express the pattern of this verb using ميزان الصرفي? In place of the first root letter, you put a fa. طيب. What do you do next? Number 2. بوضع العين في موضع الحرف الأصلي الثاني. The second root letter, which is called عين الفعل, which is also called عين الفعل. يعني الحرف الأصلي الثاني, this means the second root letter. And this is also called عين الفعل. عين الفعل. The عين of the فعل. The عين of the فعل. What do? You put عين in place of it. So here we said that, remind me, what is the second root letter of تعالم? لام. ممتاز. So in place of لام, you put an عين. طيب. And in place of the third root letter, which is also called لام الفعل, the third root letter is also called لام الفعل. In place of it, you put a لام. So now تعالم, it becomes تفاعل. This is a way that is used by the ulama of Sarf, or the Sarfiyun, to express the pattern upon which a particular fi'l is. So we say تعالم is upon the scale or of تفاعل. تعالم is on the scale of تفاعل. طيب, now let me give you something that is difficult. تعالم was easy. Likewise, علم is easy. علم, who can tell me what is the wazn of علم? Just put in place of عين fa, in place of lam عين, and in place of mim lam. So we'll say علم is upon the scale of فاعل. Right? The harakat remain the same. It's just that the root letters are replaced with fa, ain, lam. So what we need in previous times of the word, for that we need the previous. Yes. No, sahih. Here our job when we are studying al-Meezan al-Sarfi, if we don't study, we're not studying Meezan al-Sarfi in order to be able to express the yani wazn, rather in order to be able to understand what is being said in a by the ulama. So for example, the alim in his book, he says the alama is upon the wazn of tafa'ala. You would say, what does it mean tafa'ala? What does he intend by tafa'ala? You will be confused. But then if you have learned al-Meezan al-Sarfi, you will understand how he's trying to explain to me what scale is ta'alama on, or what scale is it based on. So this is why we're learning al-Meezan al-Sarfi right now, to understand the speech and the words of different scholars, and later on, once we know, then in order to be able to express ourselves as well. Right. And most of the times, ya ikhwan and ya akhawat, you know the root letter of the word. You understand by looking at the different derivatives of that same word. You get to know the different. You get to know the root letters. Once you know the root letters, you will be able to identify the wazn, the pattern, of that fi'l, and then you will be able to derive or know the different meanings that are denoted by that fi'l. Now let me give you an example. Ustad, if we don't know the word itself, then how can we identify the root letter? Are there any principles? How can we identify the root letter? That will come later on. To put it in simple words, by looking at the different derivatives of that fi'l, you will be able to find the root letters of the word. But if you don't know them, that's why your ustad or your teacher will tell you, okay, see, tafashi is upon the scale of ta'allum. Now you will understand, once the scale is now known to you, you will be able to identify the root letters yourself. So this is one way a teacher will be able to tell you the wazn of a fi'l, the wazn of a fi'l. So that's why we're learning al-Meezan as-Sarfi. Now let me give you a difficult one, ta'allama. How can you express ta'allama using al-Meezan as-Sarfi? What is the scale of a ta'allama? How will you say it in al-Meezan as-Sarfi? And Adam and Mubarak and Mustafa are requested to just abstain from answering. MashaAllah, the Nigerians have taken the lead. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Great people. Allah yahfadhum jami'an. طيب, ta'allama. How will you express this by using al-Meezan as-Sarfi?
تفعل.
تفعل. ممتاز. What do? You replace the ayn with a fa. You retain the harakas. The ayn had a fatha, the fa should have a fatha. So you replace the ayn with a fa. So you said tafa, and then you saw that the lam had a shadda on it. So you replace the lam with an ayn, and you put a shadda and a fatha on it, and you replace the meme with the lam, and you put a fatha on it. So it became tafa'ala. طيب. What is the wazn of allama? What is the wazn of allama?
فعل.
فعل. أحسنتم. فعل. ممتاز. طيب. Okay. Now let's move on to a little difficult one. What is the wazn of inkasara? Inkasara means to become broken, to break yourself or itself, to something, not to break something else, but rather to break itself. Inkasara, it got broken. So the sister says in fa'ala. Now she identified, when I told her the meaning, or perhaps she knows the word before previously, she identified that the root letters are kaf, sin, and ra. So what did she do? She just replaced the kaf with the fa, the sin with the ain, and the ra with the lam. And what did we have? We had in fa'ala. In fa'ala. طيب. Let's say we have, ya ikhwan, اكتتب. اكتتب, to register or something, or to someone, register someone or something. اكتتب. What is the fi'l? What is the wazn of اكتتب? Now this is difficult because you are unable to, you know the root letters are kaf, ta, and ba, but you don't know which of the ta is the original one, which ta is the additional one, and which ta is the original, the root letter one. But for those who have an idea, or just give it a try, everyone, or whoever wants to give it a try, just give it a try, except for Mubarak, Adam, and Mustafa. Ifta'ala, mumtaz, ifta'ala. So Talha identified that the first ta was the additional one, and the second ta is the root letter ta. So he replaced the second ta with the ain, and he retained the first ta as it is. And طبعا the alif remains in its place. طيب. Now when I'll give you a fi'l, and you will realize the importance of al-Meezan as-Sarfi then. When you have something فعل like i'tada, what is the wazn of i'tada? It's from i'tada to develop a habit of something, to develop an aada of something, a habit of something, to become used to it.
The same before?
Yes, ifta'ala, ahsant. But it was difficult to identify that it was ifta'ala because the alif does not have a haraka. So there were some things that were going behind the scene, and there was this alif was actually a waw which had a fatha. But if you remember, we mentioned at the beginning of the dars that if the waw or ya have a fatha and they are preceded with a letter that has if the waw and ya have a haraka, any haraka, fatha, dhamma, kasra, and it is preceded by a letter having a fatha, then it is converted into an alif. That's why it became i'tada. But originally it was ifta'ala. Now, if you didn't know if I don't tell you that it's Meezan, according to the Meezan as-Sarfi, that wasn't as ifta'ala, you would be, you wouldn't know what does this new wazn ifta'ala means. This would be new to you. You know ifta'ala, you know tafa'ala, but ifta'ala with a sukoon, you don't know this. So until I tell you through the Meezan as-Sarfi, you wouldn't be able to identify which group does it exactly belong to. So this is one of the fruits of knowing al-Meezan as-Sarfi. One of the fruits of knowing al-Meezan as-Sarfi. And there are other things, other benefits that you can that we gain from expressing the af'al through al-Meezan as-Sarfi. طيب. Let me give you some random words now. Tafsir. What is the wazn of tafsirun? ها شباب.
تفعيل.
تفعيل. أحسنت. ممتاز. Likewise, يا إخوان, when we said اكتتب, through Meezan as-Sarfi, you were able to know which of the two was the root letter and which one was the additional letter. Now, it was easy for your teacher to explain to you and which one was the root letter and which one is the additional letter. So now تفعيل, تفسير, تفعيل. طيب. كتاب. What is the wazn of كتاب?
فعال.
فعال. ممتاز. ممتاز جدا. طيب. What is the wazn of majlis? Place of sitting.
مفعل.
مفعل. ممتاز. مفعل. طيب. What is the wazn of masjid? Similar. It is
Yes.
مفعل. أحسنت. مفعل. طيب. What is the wazn of, let me give you some, يلا, سيارة. What is the wazn of سيارة? This one is a little difficult one. سيارة. Mubarak and Adam and Mustafa can participate as well. So لا تزعلوا مني. سيارة. What is the wazn of سيارة شباب? Yes.
فعالة.
فعالة. ممتاز. Now, what is it? What are the root letters of سيارة? Who can point out? What are the root letters of سيارة?
Sin, ya, and ra.
Sin, ya, and ra. Sin, ya, ra means to tread and to move or to roam around. سار يسير, right? سار يسير, سيرا. So سيارة is something that moves around a lot, and it's used in classical Arabic. In the Quran, it's used for the qafila, for a caravan, and nowadays it's used for a car. سيارة, that's something that moves around a lot. طيب, you have, what do we have? What else do we have? Any other example that we might have? طيب, طيب, يلا, this one is a difficult one. Al-Ma'ad. 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 What is the wazn of Al-Ma'ad? And what is its what are its root letters and what is its wazn?
al-Maf'al or something.
المفعال ما يجي ما يعني ما يجي لانه لابد يعني you must mention the second root letter. It must be there. يعني if you say المفعال you have done away with the second root letter. وعد. What happened to وعد? Sorry. Okay. I asked for the root letter. Sorry. So that's why. So a sister says mim ain dal. La. Another brother says vaw ain dal. La.
Ain, waw, and dal.
أحسنت عين واو دال. عود. Its origin is عين واو دال. عين واو dal means to return. Ma'ad is resurrection. When we will be returned. Ma'ad. We will be resurrected, brought back to life. That is ma'ad. So once we know the root letters, now how can we can you express al-ma'ad in al-Meezan as-Sarfi? نعم, but you have to express it in Meezan as-Sarfi. يعني using fa, ain, lam, replacing the root letters with fa, ain, lam. So we know that the root letters are ain, waw, which is now converted into an alif, and dal. So just simply replace them. What do we have? Al-Maf'al. Al-Mafa'lu. So if you want to express the exact harakat, you would say Al-Mafa'lu. And so this is how you will be expressing the exact harakat in al-Meezan as-Sarfi. If you want to tell us what is the original wazn, yani what this word originally was, then you will say Al-Maf'al. And this inshallah we'll be learning later on. Ma alaykum. Yani the exact, if you want to express the exact harakat, you will say al-mafa'lu. Sometimes al-Meezan as-Sarfi is used to express the exact harakat, right, of that particular fi'l, or exact state that a particular fi'l or word is in. And sometimes you would use al-Meezan as-Sarfi in order to just explain what pattern is it on. So it's on the pattern of mafa'lu, on al-maf'al, originally maf'al. But for some reason, we had to put a sukun on alif because we had an alif, so we had to put a sukun, and it became into a maf'alu. Right. What is the Meezan as-Sarfi of qul? What are the root letters of qul? We did this today. Qala yaqulu. What are the root letters of qala yaqulu? Qaf waw lam. Right. So if that is the case, qaf waw lam, how would you exactly I want an exact expression of the harakat and the the letters that are present in the word. What is the wazn of qul? You don't have a waw.
قولة.
So, لا 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 يعني in Meezan as-Sarfi, replace the root letters with fa, ain, and lam. If you say fu'l, I don't find any waw. There is no waw here. So you cannot say fu'l. You would say full. That's it. قل على وزن full. عرفتم? Do you understand this? قل is upon the wazn of full. Why? Because the second root letter, that was the waw, was omitted. So did we omit the ain from al-Meezan as-Sarfi? We did not mention the ain. واضح? يعني this is how you use al-Meezan as-Sarfi to express the exact state of a fi'l. قل على وزن full. طيب. مثلا الآن عندكم يا شباب, let me give you another one. يدعون. يدعون يعني a number of people, يعني a group of people are calling. يدعون. طيب. What is the exact wazn of يدعون? يعني according to Meezan as-Sarfi, how will you express يدعون in Meezan as-Sarfi? First identify the root letters. Where are the root letters? And replace them with fa, ain, and lam. and retain the additional letters as they are. Ain is absent. Ain al-fi'l is absent. Even this was for the previous, I guess. Yeah. Naam. Anyone? Okay. Let's do it like this.
Yes.
What are the root letters of يفعون ممتاز? What were you saying, Talha?
يفعلنا.
يفعلنا. Okay, it depends. Right now, I did not specify whether it is a group of men or women. But if it's a group of men, then according to the answer will be the one that the sister has given, يفعون. If it is a group of men. Why? I'll tell you. يفعون. Because firstly, the root of يدعو is dal, ain, and waw. However, the waw here is not the waw of the root letter. Rather, this is waw al-jama'ah. This is waw al-jama'ah. Remember waw al-jama'ah, the ضمير متصل مبني على السكون لا محل في محل رفع فاعل. This is waw al-jama'ah. So we had to retain it the way it was. We could not replace it with any root letter. It's not the root letter. The waw that was the root letter was previously present. It was the fi'l was supposed to be like this, يدعوون. But for some Sarfi, because of some Sarf principles in Sarf, we had to do away with this waw. So it became يدعوون. That's why the wazn of يدعوون is يفعون. طيب, how about if يدعوون means a group of women are calling? يدعوون. Now the wazn takes a shift, a change. Now here the waw is not waw al-jama'ah, rather is the original waw. If you remember in the siyagh of the fi'l, you would remember that we had for women, we had a group of women, third person, يفعلن. يفعلن. Remember that? يفعلن. So here it is exactly that's what's going on here. يفعلن. يفعلن. In order to just be precise with the harakah that is on the ain. يفعلن. So this يفعلن, when it is for the women calling, يدعون is upon the wazn of يفعلن. When it is for the men calling, it is upon the wazn of يفعون. So this was this is al-Meezan as-Sarfi. Inshallah, as we move on, I will keep asking you different words and their awzan, and I will keep asking you to express them in al-Meezan as-Sarfi. For now, I will just give you, let's say, 10 words, and you have to write them down. You have to express them using al-Meezan as-Sarfi as a homework. Inshallah, I need to think of some good challenging words, and then I'll send the homework on WhatsApp, and then you will have to express them using al-Meezan as-Sarfi. نكتفي أيها الإخوة الكرام بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.